Have you ever found yourself making the exact same mistake again and just, kicking yourself for it? Yeah, we've all been there. In this explainer, we're going to dig into the science and the psychology behind why we get stuck in these loops, from simple brain glitches to the deepest echoes of our past.
It's a question that drives us all crazy, right? You know what the better choice is. You absolutely remember how badly it went last time, and yet you go and do it anyway. That's the core mystery we're going to try to unravel together.
Okay, so let's jump right into the science here, because the first piece of this puzzle is a total paradox. You'd think it takes a little while for that, I messed up, feeling to sink in. But nope, your brain is way, way ahead of you. It knows you made a mistake almost instantly.
In fact, research shows it takes your brain just about 1 second to figure out that an unwanted outcome was your fault. Not just bad luck, not some random event, but something you did. 1 second. I mean, that's unbelievably fast.
But here's where it gets really cool. Your brain doesn't just clock the mistake. It treats it totally differently than, say, a random surprise. A surprise, that gets a little blip of brain activity. But an error, one that you caused, well, that gets the initial blip plus an extra 2 to 3 seconds of sustained brain power. It's like your brain is literally hitting pause, holding on to that signal, and shouting to the rest of your body, hey, pay attention, let's not do that again.
And that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? If we have this built-in, super-fast error correction system firing off in our heads, what on earth is powerful enough to just override it and make us walk right back into the same mess?
Well, a lot of the time, the answer comes down to one thing: efficiency. Or you could say laziness. Our brains are designed to save energy, so they create these little mental shortcuts based on what's worked before. The problem is, sometimes those shortcuts lead us straight into a ditch.
To really see this in action, let's look at a classic psychology experiment from way back in 1942. It's called the water jar problem. The setup is pretty simple. You've got 3 jars, all different sizes, and your goal is to measure out exactly 100 units of water.
So after people try a few problems like this, they almost always figure out the solution. You take the biggest jar, B, fill it up, and then you pour out the amount from jar A once and the amount from jar C twice. So that's 127 minus 21 minus 6, and yep, that gets you exactly 100. The logic makes perfect sense once you see it. Okay, you ready? Here's a new one. The jars are 15, 39, and 3 units. Your goal is to get exactly 18. Just take a second. How would you do it? If you're like most people who did this experiment, your brain probably jumps straight to that old formula. B minus A minus 2 C's. 39 minus 15 minus 6. That equals 18. It works! But in the process, you probably completely miss the much, much simpler solution. Just add jar A and jar C. 15 plus 3 is 18. Done.
This experiment is just a perfect demonstration of something called the Einstein effect. Basically, it's a cognitive trap. Our brains get stuck in a mental rut, and we prefer to follow the familiar path we already know, even when there's a much better, easier way staring us right in the face. We repeat the old way just because, well, it's the old way.
Now, this isn't just some quirky thing that happens to us as individuals. It happens in huge organizations too. And when it does, the consequences can be absolutely catastrophic. The same little mental shortcuts that trip us up personally can lead entire institutions to repeat the most horrific mistakes. I mean, just look at the tragic story of NASA's space shuttles. After the Challenger disaster in 1986, the whole organization went into crisis mode. The focus was intensely on safety, safety, safety. But as time went on, that focus started to fade. The pressure to meet budgets and schedules, that old familiar path, started to take over again. And then, in 2003, this organizational forgetting led to the Columbia disaster, a tragedy that had eerily similar root causes. And this really gets to the heart of it. Organizations, just like our own brains, have limited bandwidth. It is incredibly hard to stay laser-focused on safety when you're also being pushed to be efficient and hit deadlines. So over time, that really hard-learned lesson just fades away, and the whole system defaults back to its old, familiar, and sometimes incredibly dangerous patterns.
But all of this still doesn't explain our most personal, most painful, repeated mistakes, does it? You know, the self-destructive patterns that seem to make no logical sense at all. To understand those, we have to go a lot deeper into the psychology of trauma.
more than 100 years ago, Sigmund Freud noticed this really powerful thing he called the repetition compulsion. What he saw was that people who go through something traumatic don't just remember it. They're often, in his words, doomed to repeat it, reliving the experience in their current lives without even realizing the connection to what happened in the past.
And this reenactment, it can show up in so many tragic ways. Victims might unconsciously find themselves in similar abusive situations over and over. Sometimes they might identify with the person who hurt them and end up harming others. Many get caught in self-destructive behaviors. And in a really cruel twist, some develop these incredibly powerful attachments to people who hurt them.
This is something known as traumatic bonding. Think about it. In a moment of extreme danger, our most basic instinct is to seek attachment, to connect with someone. So what happens when the source of the danger is also the source of comfort, like in an abusive relationship? A really powerful, almost addictive bond can form. That cycle of abuse, followed by an apology or a moment of kindness, creates this reward pattern that basically wires the brain to confuse pain with love, making it almost impossible to leave.
Okay, so let's try to bring all of these different layers together. What we're really looking at is this constant conflict playing out inside us. Our brain's lightning-fast ability to spot a mistake versus our mind's deep-seated, stubborn tendency to repeat old patterns.
So when you ask, why do we repeat our mistakes? Well, it's because our brains are built for these efficient shortcuts that can turn into traps. It's because our companies and institutions have short memories and forget painful lessons. And on the deepest level, it's because unresolved trauma can push us to relive the past in the present, always searching for a way to fix it that honestly rarely comes from just repeating it.
So that leaves us with this really powerful critical question. We have this internal alarm that goes off the second we mess up, but we also have these powerful currents of habit, of bias, of our own personal history pulling us right back to where we started. The first step to breaking that cycle is just knowing that this internal fight is even happening, because once you know it's there, you have a choice. Your brain detects the error, your mind wants to repeat it. The question is, which one are you going to listen to?